Okay, welcome everyone. I'm Philip.
I'm Sarang. Philip, tell them who you are in the club.
Yeah, I'm currently VPF, so Vice President of Finance. So not really popular because I don't interact with a lot of people. I just crunch up numbers.
I'm Sarang. I am one of the software leads with Abhinav. Yeah. So today we thought we'd talk about neural feedback games and other fun stuff. And this will be like less lecture-y. So we're just going to show you a bunch of videos and random things. And
Yeah,
then feel free to
and
interrupt
hope
if you have questions.
and hopefully it'll be a bit interactive. So if you guys want to like interrupt and like ask something or say something or have a discussion, then we're very open to that. So yeah,
Yeah, or talk about how amazing the presentation is.
yeah, or that. I think the title for like on the Facebook post might have been a bit misleading. That's because uh, we weren't exactly sure where we want to like center representation because this is a very diverse field. Like not just neurotechnology in general, but like even interfacing and interacting with the brain is a diverse field. So yeah, we're just gonna get started and show you some cool stuff, I guess. Oop, there we go.
Yeah, so first we can kind of talk about what neural feedback is. So here are just some facts. We can talk about them. But in general, we know that the brain is plastic, which means that we can mold it and change it and do all sorts of things to it. Um, and as much as we like to think that we're not super like Pavlovian, our brains tend to be very easily conditioned. Um, so we can do different things to condition and train the brain. And we do this externally all the time. You learn a new instrument or a language or TikTok dances, or your schoolwork. And this is still like part of the plasticity of the brain. But the next step is going even deeper and trying to change some of the brain function itself. So improving memory and other cognitive function. So instead of your teacher giving you grades, we can try to grade your actual brain function and tell you how your brain is doing so you can improve that at a basic level. So this is a really, really powerful tool for us to build really cool experiences for people to improve their cognitive function and do really cool things with their brain.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I guess like there are multiple ways to do this. Like interfacing, interacting with the brain is just very general. Like you can do so many things, and interacting with it might mean that you are causing some change in like the neural level and um, like through electric stimulation, for instance, or it could be purely psychological. So, for instance, like one way is creating an immersive experience, such as through VR environments, where you can recreate an environment where you experience something like a traumatic event, for instance, and relive that. And then, as Sarang said before, you can like recondition yourself and your brain to have a different or less of a reaction to that. But in this case, there's essentially no like direct contact with the brain. You're not plugging electrodes in your brain and like trying to change like the neuroplasticity, for instance. That's something that happens through the means of like psychological change, right? There's really not much to measure there because there's no um, yeah, because there's no like hands-on interaction with the brain. So another way to do that is using non-invasive technologies where, like, for instance, you can use EEG to get the signals coming from your brain, and you use that as neurofeedback. So what does neurofeedback mean? It means that basically you're somehow monitoring the reaction coming from like your neural signals, and you adapt your behavior or some other parameter in such a way that uh, you essentially change like you bring about synaptic changes, etc. Another way to do this is like through TDCS, which is transcranial direct current stimulation. And then you can also use it through invasive technologies. Here, Sarang wrote Neuralink eye emoji. I guess it's kind of cryptic what Neuralink does. And deep brain stimulation is obviously like a very big thing right now and will be in the future, but it's quite promising. Yeah, so let's talk about immersive experience a little bit more. As I said, you can, create a VR environment. So you create like a visual stimulus, and you add some sound, and there's sometimes they add like even odor generating devices. I didn't even know these existed, but apparently it's a thing. So like, yeah, that's mainly used for PTSD treatments. Its basis is habituation. So you have a conditioned stimulus and a response, a conditioned response. For instance, you see snakes and you immediately have like a fear reaction. So by showing you an environment with VR environment with a lot of snakes and like, I don't know, hissing sounds and parcel tongue, what is it in Harry Potter? I guess you can kind of adapt your reaction so that you don't have that same like fear. They do a lot of PTSD treatment by means of VR in veterans for obvious reasons. So this is a paper I found that looked quite interesting because these guys basically recreated a VR environment from the Russian Revolution, and they found that being Lenin, I think it's the most interesting title ever. Being Lenin enhances presence and engagement, and here's some like pictures from there. So that's Trotsky, that's Lenin, who is also you, as you can see. You're looking into a mirror, and then this is like the red square, I guess. Yeah. Anyway, interesting stuff.
Wait, is this open source?
Yeah. You can.
So you want to go play this, right?
Oh, this game. I'm not sure actually. I just found the paper because I was actually gonna work with. Can you see my pointer?
Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna work with this guy in the summer, but RIP internship. And I just found that he wrote this paper. Pretty interesting. Anyway.
Interesting.
Cool. Yeah, I don't know. Check it out and like honestly, let me know. I might buy a VR headset just to play that if it's open source. Yeah. Anybody want to add something? Some cool VR stuff they've tried? It's not. Okay. So, Sarang, do you want to like talk a little bit? I feel like I've been talking too much.
Sure. So another way to do neural feedback is with non-invasive technologies, and this is pretty popular in a lot of labs growing now, especially UCSF and at Berkeley. So EEG, MEG are the classic things that you do, and the basic methods are pretty simple. You read the brain waves, you send it to your computer. The tools that we have used for processing are the same tools that we've used for decades now. And only now are like machine learning methods becoming more and more used for EEG and EMG and stuff like that. But like a lot of the methods that we use are still very analytical methods. We check the frequency of your EEG and you say, okay, this person's paying attention or not paying attention. So a lot of times, some of the more intricate analyses and more in-depth things about emotion and mental state get lost with this like very naive approach to EEG. But we have shown a lot of success with using things like this. So like Halo Sport is supposed to help stimulate your brain to be better when you lift weights and stuff like that. Muse headset is an example of neural feedback. It tells you how well you're meditating, and the idea is that over time you get better and better and better at meditating. because of the feedback of reading your EEG. And all this uses pretty simple non-machine learning tools for neural feedback. But the cool thing is that now the popular thing is combining these non-invasive technologies with the immersive experiences to maybe include EEG in a VR headset, for example, or include EMG as part of the VR headset. And then now we can create even more intricate experiences and richer experiences using EEG that might let us come up with even more in-depth analysis of mental state, mental health, and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we got some.
Yeah,
cool...
I guess the with so the problem with EEG, in my perspective at least, is that like brain signals are so like mixed and just chaotic that like it's like having a bowl of alphabet soup and you're trying to like take all the A's and put them together. For instance, that's what all of these like machine learning techniques and ICA, which is like independent component analysis, and PCA, that's what all of these trying to do. Basically identify components of brain activity and somehow use these components, use these signals in order to give some feedback to the user. So at least in my perspective, again, I don't have too much experience with that, but the basic idea is that you take the signal, you transmit it to the computer, that gets processed in some way, so be that machine learning or just I don't know, like filtering, and then you use that signal in order to change some parameters in some environment. So that environment could be a game, for instance, and then the subject perceives that change, and there's just this like loop going on.
Philip, do you mind if I say something on that real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, cool. So I'm in a lab where we're working with EEG data, and I'm gonna do a presentation soon where I show people like the data and how it's processed and filtered. But what you're saying is basically exactly right. And we use a thing called ICA, and it's just an analysis algorithm that breaks down the data based on like where are the really high amplitudes that are probably not neural data and they're probably artifacts. So just the first run is going over it and trying to eliminate what the most obvious noise is. And what I think something like what Muse is doing is they're taking the average rate of amplitudes of all the signals that are being generated by the electrodes, and then correlating high amplitudes with noisier, stormy sounds. And then when you slow your thoughts down and the waves smooth out, then the amplitudes are lower and then it starts to get more quiet. So in that way, when you're meditating, it can give you feedback and tell you if it's noisy, you're not meditating well, but if it's quiet, you are meditating well. And that's kind of what that looks like.
Yeah. Like that's, I'm not sure what Muse does. The thing with Muse is, like personally, I don't use it because like it has very few channels from what I understand. And I'm not sure what the signal quality is.
Bad.
But sorry, go ahead.
No, the signal quality is bad.
Oh, it's bad, right? Okay.
Yeah. Like they're not going to tell you anything specific about what part of your brain is thinking what. I think they're really just taking an average of the height of the signals.
Yeah, that's exactly what they do.
There's this very radical thought, in my opinion, in cognitive neuroscience in general, that the actual language of your brain is in fact these oscillations. It's not. It's the frequencies rather than where the signal takes place. Anyway, so I guess what Muse does is that it does like the band filtering, the band component analysis kind of. So it sees like, oh, from 8 to 12 hertz you have that much power, for instance, and that sort of correlates to like focus and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, anybody can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's exactly what they do. They just look at the different frequencies, check if the amplitude is high at the higher frequencies, and then or lower frequencies, and they say, "Wow, you're meditating." So it's pretty. I know it's very noisy, and it's often can be pretty inaccurate, especially because people also have different, because they don't use any like intelligence when they do it. You know, everyone has different, slightly different frequencies.
You mean that they just do the band like component? Yeah.
And everyone has a lot of different artifacts. You know, people have more hair and bigger foreheads and other things.
That's true. Like, I guess that's the issue with like standardized shape and size headsets, which kind of goes back to what you were asking on the other day, Kyle. Like that because of like structural differences. I mean, your temporal lobe, for instance, might be slightly like at a different place than mine is, which I don't know. Muse does not really account for that. Is that? Yeah.
No, yeah, 100%. Everyone's brain is different, and in the fMRI lab I'm in, you can actually see physically. Some people have brains that are 20 to 30% bigger than other people. It's like bizarre. I didn't know that until I was in there. But anyways, didn't mean to distract from the presentation.
No, please. You know,
Yeah,
feel distracted anytime.
Awesome.
Further distraction without talking.
So let's move on to the next slide at least. I don't really know much about ECOG. I know it's in invasive technology. It's an array of electrodes. Basically, you put it. So I chose this picture because it's not real. There were some real pictures that were pretty yucky. Anyway, it's an array of electrodes. So and like with very small spaces between them. So what they mostly use it for, to my understanding, is to find the epicenter of epilepsy. So let's say you're epileptic, you don't know what brain tissue is causing the epilepsy. You basically get your head open, they put that RA inside, they find exactly where that spot is, and then they proceed surgically. So it's used primarily in clinical and surgical settings, so it's not that fun. It's not that fun of a way to interact with the brain.
Yeah, and something that this picture doesn't show is like, until very recently, all of these had to be wired. So what it doesn't show is like a huge like bunch of wires sticking out of this person's head, which is even more scary and like Dr. Octopus type vibes. So yeah, so invasive technologies, they're getting better. They're becoming more wireless. There's a lot of research at Berkeley, like neural dust, stuff like that, to help make these technologies wireless, but it's very hard. And also, you require a lot of different sensors to make it work. So even if it is wireless, you have a bunch of different sensors all over your brain. So not very appealing to a lot of patients.
Yeah, and there's also DBS, which is deep brain stimulation. There's some cool material online. You can read about DBS and watch some videos of, for instance, like patients, like Parkinson's patients that. So what DBS is basically I place stimulating electrode in some part of your brain in order to provide electrical impulses which just stimulate that region. So for Parkinson's patients, that region of interest would be substantia nigra, where dopamine is produced. Medulla, is that correct?
Say that one more time.
For Parkinson's patients, like if you want to do DBS, then you would plug the electrode in the substantia nigra, right?
I really don't know DBS, so
Okay.
I think that is correct.
Yeah.
Because it's the area that produces dopamine, and I think is associated with the misproduction of dopamine. They stick that electrode deep in there and then stimulate that area.
Nice. Oh, Jessica giving the thumbs up.
Okay.
yeah, I think that's right as well.
Good job.
Okay. All right, let's move on. Let's show some videos now of some cool applications. So I'm not gonna show all of them, like just some select ones. So can you guys hear the video? Oops. Nope.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can hear it.
All right. Yeah.
At 23 years old and
my apartment, it was hard.
The idea of neurofeedback is, can we show the brain a mirror of itself and provide it with feedback that gives it subtle cues, either auditorily or visually or both, that allows it to essentially sort of self-correct.
with the dual background in
That's what we were
education.
talking about before. Just giving neurofeedback to, like, be aware of what's happening in your brain while you're experiencing something. Here's a setup.
Like Vicky shift their thinking into more functional patterns. Neurofeedback doesn't involve medication and it's non-invasive.
This is not magic. This isn't any, voodoo. This isn't anything like that. It is really just harnessing our own brain's ability to self-correct.
Here's a video of using neurofeedback for ADHD treatment. So I think it's in Swedish. Yeah. Okay. So basically, there's this little kid here that has ADHD, and he's doing a session of neurofeedback treatment. Oh, again. Oh my God. He sits in
different
front
from
of
treatment by
a screen
medication.
and just basically plays a game.
The success of feedback training also depends.
De grootste ontwikkeling die ik zie die Tax heeft doorgemaakt, is natuurlijk dat hij zichzelf.
Such as the Nexus 10
Oh, yeah,
from treatment by medication.
So here's the game. I guess he's like sending an asteroid somewhere. I don't know what exactly he's doing. Anyway. And here are some more cool applications. So, like, obviously, any tool that is going to be widely available, like EEG is today, is going to be used for like different purposes. I find that really cool. So this guy turned his brainwaves into music. He's an artist that basically uses the
artist from Montreal, and I
interface with music software.
Performance. In my piece, I use 3 different devices. I capture the electricity of the brain with a brainwave sensor, the electricity of the heart.
Oh my God, terrible at this.
A receiver, all at the same time. Try to meditate. It will just.
Okay, never mind. Sorry, you want to talk about your videos?
Sure. They work. So the first one is one of the things I'm very excited about for neurofeedback, which is prosthetics. So you could imagine, or if you think about it, one might think that one of the hardest parts about prosthetics is how do we figure out how to actually move the hand or move a leg or whatever the way that we want it to. But luckily, the brain, like we mentioned earlier, is very plastic. So we can train it to move the way that the researcher wants it to. So instead of whoever's making the hand have to worry about, like figuring out what the patient's brain is doing, we can train the brain and such that it moves according to what we want it to do, which is really, really cool. And it helps overcome a major hurdle in prosthetics, And this video is a really cool example of a lady who has gotten a trial prosthetic arm. So it's super, one day hopefully we'll get to the Star Wars type prosthetic hands, but this seems like a pretty cool step in that direction. So if the video is, okay.
Basically, they just put sensors around my arm that could read my muscle patterns, and then I would do the movements with my imaginary arm, and the machine would recognize the muscle patterns, and then the arm would do those motions afterwards.
The limb may move in a weird way, and that's okay because it's the first time it's hearing those muscle patterns. We'll do elbow up and down. Nice.
The arm learns how to understand.
Sorry, what'd you say?
Yeah, so the feedback from what the EEG or EMG is reading, we can help inform the brain how to retrain itself to move this arm, and in turn inform the arm how to learn to listen to the right patterns in the brain. So it's a really, really powerful closed loop system for prosthetics and for a lot of other applications that we'll talk about later, that allow us to. So this is a great video demonstrating that. So yeah, I would encourage people. It's a really long video, but after this, if you want to Google it and watch it, it's really interesting to see where the research is going.
So Ron, is that thing wireless? It's on her arm, or do they have it hooked up to something?
I think the EMG thing looks like it's hooked up to something. Maybe in the back.
Yeah, it could be.
If it's not, then it's like
I'm wondering because like Control Labs, I think their technology is similar in that it allows you to control movements by sending impulses through the arm, and it's wireless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so Facebook bought Control Lab, which Devin was really excited about. But they, you can imagine becoming really useful for VR instead of having to hold those really annoying sticks, controllers that look like nunchucks. You could just actually think about moving your hand in different ways, and it does it. Yeah. And then this other video is just an example of the types of games that people make for neurofeedback. On the right, it's just someone just flying a plane with their brain. And you can train the brain to do different things. So we want it to pay more attention or be more focused or more calm. So I think in this case, it's based on attention. So if the patient is paying attention or more aware, then the plane goes higher or like moves a certain way. I think something like that. So you can just play, huh? Yeah. My mom just said it's kind of.
What?
My mom just said it's kind of like using the force. So here they are. Everyone. I mean, like, who doesn't want to pretend to be a dragon and control it with their brain?
Right.
Or whatever the heck that thing is. I don't know what that is. A bunch of eyes and.
That is.
Yeah. So these are just some. This company Zucor makes a lot of really cool neurofeedback games. They have like a whole platform built for it. And like a lot of clinicians use some of their stuff or built their own stuff, but similar ideas. And they're made to be very appealing because you want people to actually want to play them or do things with them. Go to the next slide. Okay,
Oh,
so
there we go.
this is probably one of the coolest, like more raw forms of neurofeedback I've ever seen. So Neuroscape has something called a glass brain. So what they do is they have a VR with an EEG and an MRI, and they like put you in an MRI, and basically you can look around your own brain in real time as they're measuring it and seeing where there's activity and where things are happening, which is just insane. So this is super useful for neurofeedback because you can see where things are happening in your own brain, and then work towards improving it and doing things. And it's a super powerful visual. So the video on the right, if it works, is me looking at someone else's brain, but still kind of ridiculous. So what you see on the screen is what I'm looking at. So let's see if it works.
Like MS related. Yeah. Like most of the work at UCSF is.
You
know, we're like
we're on the brain.
few labs at UCSF.
And
That's pretty cool.
It's just a little ridiculous. So
live activity from the person's brain.
Yeah.
Oh my.
That's pretty cool.
It's pretty absurd. Yeah. I mean, like, if it was my own, I would have had an existential crisis. Like, looking at what's happening in my own brain in real time. But yeah, it's really cool. Maybe we can do a field trip or something. And
that would be awesome.
We can go try it. But yeah,
it's kind of ridiculous. I don't think you actually realize it's your own brain you're looking at when you're doing it.
Did you do this when we like had that Neuroscape field trip thing? Is that when this happened?
Yeah, that's right. When we went last semester, last year. When was that?
I think that was last semester. Sick.
Time is irrelevant.
Just because it's expensive.
But yeah, so really like useful and like artistic and kind of mind-blowing example of neurofeedback with this particular VR experience. And then on the next slide, I think this is a little bit more lecture-y, but there are a lot of papers coming out of UCSF and other groups where they're talking about using neurofeedback. And I kind of wanted to highlight the successes of a lot of these papers, just because it's kind of incredible. So the first one on the top right was it's published in Nature. It's a letter in Nature actually, and basically they were able to show that using video games you can demonstrate differences in cognitive ability with different patients. So that particular gene deletion is most often found in patients with ADHD. And what they were able to show is that these video games can actually demonstrate really key factors of ways that we can help people have a better quality of life, and help people deal with different things. And video games showed a lot more brain function than did the traditional tests, which is pretty surprising. So they were able to show how powerful that these types of games would be in actually improving cognitive ability. So so armed with that knowledge, a bunch of other people are starting to use video games to actually improve cognitive ability. So the one on the left, the game-based neurofeedback system, was given to aging patients, who are having memory-related issues, but not quite dementia. So they didn't accept anyone with dementia, and all they were doing is controlling a car using their using a measurement of attention. And what ended up happening was after several days, several weeks, they showed improved visual processing and spatial memory, which is really, really interesting. And similar study, the one on the bottom right, the video game training, what happened there was this study actually showed that older adults who were trained with neurofeedback games performed better on the video games than 20-year-olds who weren't trained at all, which is really surprising. And I'm sure my dad would be happy to hear that. But they did another similar car racing game that seems to be really popular, and they found a lot of underlying neurological features that helped explain why this was happening. And one of these things I wrote down because I thought it was interesting is they found a particular frequency band, which is well known to be responsible for working memory, so like 4 to 7 hertz. And they showed that, you know, some these older adults, like after a lot of training, had higher amplitude and more sustained oscillations in that frequency band. And the reason I thought it was interesting is because Hum, like the startup that's at Skydeck, which I'm sure most of you have heard about, they try to increase working memory by basically firing like 6 hertz at your frontal cortex, which, okay, I don't know how legit Hum is, but the point is, like, you can achieve the same thing with neurofeedback games in a much more robust and much more like scientifically well-defined manner, and much more naturally, because instead of inducing a current or inducing an oscillation, you're helping the patients improve their own cognitive function using their brain plasticity to achieve better oscillations with working memory, things like that, and get better at racing games, I guess. And then the last study here was as in like helping children with sensory processing dysfunction, and this is another racing game type thing, and you had similar results where children were able to do a lot better and showed sustained improvement 6 months, even after finishing the study. So even after stopping these neurofeedback games, they're still showing improvement, which is really the point of all this, is to show that we can use neurofeedback for improving cognitive function, both in young people and in older people, and have sustained improvement over time, which is really powerful. So yeah, so I thought I'd highlight some of these papers. Definitely encourage everyone to check it out, / look more into some of the research happening with this, because there's all sorts of incredible things happening. And then now, more interestingly, Philip is going to do a demo that will hopefully work.
Yeah, so I was hoping to do a demo with the motivation being that at the end of the day, you know, like neurofeedback is not that complex of an idea. So I just want to show you like how I kind of do that. So I have this little Cyton board from Neurotech, which I need to return, by the way.
That's right.
You knew I had it though. You knew I had it. So a Cyton board is by OpenBCI. It's this little circuit here that has some electrodes, and a battery pack. So what I do is I'll turn it on. Come on, and try and connect it to my computer.
Say that was OpenBCI?
Yeah, that was OpenBCI.
Cool. Where'd you get it?
Neurotech.
I
borrowed it. Okay.
We own a couple. We can loan one out to you post COVID.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet.
You're interested.
So there's this really cool software called Neuromore. Come on, please open. So Cyton has like 8 channels, I think. I'm not gonna actually connect any of these electrodes to my scalp because it kind of takes time and needs to be very precise, and it's just a proof of concept thing we're doing here. So, okay, this is an environment called Neuromore. Basically it bridges your device to this interface which allows you to do like manipulations to the signal. So that's the signal coming from this circuit. And it's pretty bad. I'm not sure why, but doesn't really matter for now. And what it lets you do is basically, oops, not this, I want to do this. You can use all these little objects here to perform like functions on the signal. So you can use logic objects that allow you to make decisions, channel math, operations, statistics, etc. Then some filtering here. Yep. So I have this little setup here. This is my BCI device. This is the signal coming in. It's going through some filters here. It's not really intricate. I think I wasn't really sure what I was doing when I was building this, but it kind of works well. So here I have 3 outputs basically. This is I believe this is alpha waves. So that's the band. Beta and gamma, or I'm not sure if it's delta maybe. Anyway, so I'm bridging this signal through OSC, which is Open Sound Control. I'm bridging it over to another software called Max, which is mainly used for sound design. And as you can see, so this is the port coming out from this software and going into this software. And I'm routing this this output, which is the alpha band, I think. And this is a raw signal, right? So yeah, it's pretty simple. And what you can do a billion things, honestly, once you have this, if you spend enough time. I guess it all comes down to placing the electrode at the right point in your scalp to get the measurement you want. And then applying some function to it in order to like manipulate the signal in such a way that is useful to you. So what I will do right now is scale the signal into, oh, come on. Oh yeah, okay. Give me a minute, please. So as you can see, it's, I'm gonna like move these around a bit. You see that it goes up. The signal value goes up. So the range is 0 to 1. Low input value is going to be 0. High input value, oops, is going to be 1. And then let's say I want to scale this from 0 to 10 in order to control some parameter. So basically what happens now is, let's look at the signal. Oops, nope. Here we go. Huh, that's curious. Okay. I'm doing something wrong here. Can figure out why exactly.
Because the EEG is bad.
Yeah, it's hard to deal with, honestly. Okay, so now we have like a more flexible kind of signal, and let's make like a a single tone. So let's make a 440 hertz tone, which is A on the piano, middle A. And so what should happen here is this should, can you guys hear anything? Really?
Can't hear anything from Max yet.
I can just hear like your guys' voices, but not any. Yeah.
Okay, 1 minute. It's not working.
Oh.
There we go.
Oh.
Sorry about that. Okay, cool. So what I can do now is, okay, let's say I want the signal to have this range. I can take this output and plug it in here. So can you hear the changing pitch?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sick.
Is that correlated with the change in the signal?
Excuse me? Yeah, exactly. Wow. That's what's happening. So if I put this electrode on like my frontal like region, for instance, and applied the correct transformation to it, then I could theoretically make something really cool. Yeah, and I can do, like, you know, once you have that, you can do a billion things. Yeah, I guess that was my demo, just to prove that concept. So yeah, honestly, there's so many ways to like combine media and make new neurotechnology themed applications. Just, you know, like choose something you like and, you know, borrow an EEG device, for instance, from Neurotech, and just like plug it in and play with it, and maybe you can end up with some really cool stuff.
Yeah, that was awesome.
And I think that was it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's all from us. Still the slide from education. Thank you. But, yeah. So thank you guys so much for listening to us drone on for a little bit. But if you have any questions / want to chat, we'll be here for a few minutes. Does anyone have any?
Does anybody want to discuss something?